Yes, we're back. We're just waiting for the chair. I think the chair is out in the foyer for a sec. But everyone from the Guam International Airport Authority that will be testifying. Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you. And you guys have all been sworn in already by the Sergeant at Arms. Good afternoon again, and Mr. Chairman, Mr. Bamba, please introduce yourself again and your team for the record, and you may proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Senator Lujan. Good afternoon, Senators. My name is Brian Bamba, and I'm the Chairman of the Board of Directors of the Guam International Airport Authority, and with me I have to my right Executive Manager John Kanata, and to my left Deputy Executive Manager Ricky Hernandez, as well as our Comptroller, Ms. Daphne Shims, and our airport consultant, Mr. Frank Santos, who will all participate in today's presentation. So if I may begin. Buenos Aires Hamzu, good morning, good afternoon now, Honorable Chairman Senator Lujan, and members of the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal and Foreign Affairs. My name is Brian Bamba, and I'm here before you as the Chairman of the Board of Directors of the AB Wanpat International Airport Authority. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my fellow board members and GIAA management. We thank you for the opportunity to participate in today's oversight hearing, and we welcome the dialogue and collaboration amongst the stakeholders guiding Guam's primary industry driving our economy. The airport team is here as well to give a quick snapshot of the committee's, as the committee's requested agenda items to include its current environment, ongoing financial stabilization efforts, and future plans for capital improvement. As is well known in the travel and tourism industry, Guam continues to face challenges with recovery following the pandemic and Typhoon Mawar events that eroded our traffic to the island. There are also a number of contributing factors outside of the airport's immediate control, such as currency exchange rates, airline equipment availability, travel demand preferences, and competition. The dynamic isn't always favorable, but not for lack of effort. We have welcomed new and increased services from our airline partners and seen some frequencies temporarily suspended, but we remain hopeful that conditions will continue to improve. Looking forward, we continue to seek opportunities to enhance the customer experience at the airport, monitor and contain operating costs, and leverage federal funding to develop more infrastructure to accommodate future growth. This could only be made possible through the support of the Leon Guerrero Ternero administration and the Guam legislature. And we are grateful for the committee's support of policies which allow for the diversification of revenues to stabilize airport finances and which bring new opportunities to the Guam International Airport. Again, Suzus Maasi, and we welcome your questions and concerns. Sincerely, Brian Bamba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, thank you again for being here this afternoon, or actually since this morning. Let me start by, of course, saying the airport, again, is the, so I've always said, the heartbeat of our tourism infrastructure and economy. Every visitor who lands on Guam comes through your gates. So while the legislature appropriate $10 million for airline incentives to GVB, your partnership is key to making the investment work. Can you just start by describing, again, how those conversations and partnerships with the Guam Visitors Bureau have been going since the funding was approved, yet to be awarded to the Guam Visitors Bureau, but are GIAA and GVB coordinating closely on route development, or are you still seeking two separate strategies? I hope not at this point, right? Are you satisfied with how the coordination has gone so far?
Thank you for your question, Senator. Senator, if I may ask that, if we could do a presentation, if management can do the presentation, some of which will address some of your, hopefully your questions, and the rest of the committee, and then we can jump right into answering some of your concerns. Sure. So I'll just hand it to Mr. Kanata.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and senators on this committee, Senator, the Vice Chair, Senator Chris Duenas, Vice Speaker Tony Yata, Senator Vince Bora, Senator Teresa Lai, and Senator Sabina Perez. I am the executive manager. I'm John M. Knatz. I'm the executive manager of the Guam International Airport Authority. And I want to assure the Committee on Transportation, Tourism, Customs, Utilities, and Federal and Foreign Affairs that our organization is expending all efforts to maximize revenue and resources and minimize costs and increase efficiency, all the while maintaining high standards in safety and security during this extended period of recovery from our best performance in 2019, when our operations were affected by COVID-19, Typhoon Wawar, and the sluggish travel demand from our key markets. In this presentation, if we can get it up. Next slide. In this presentation, the GIAA's Airline Incentive Program, we will cover GIAA's incentive program and performance metrics that shine light on the benefits of its implementation and its positive impact on our operations. We will also cover the status of our route development efforts, share some of our discussions on prospective airlines, and coordinated efforts with the Guam Visitors Bureau. We will also present and discuss our actual and budgeted enplanements versus revenues, and our actual and forecasted expenditures, short-term financing facility option we are exploring. And lastly, we will provide a comprehensive briefing on our infrastructure readiness and the investment of $118.4 million in Guam's only civilian airport. I would like to begin with our airline incentive program performance matrix. I'd like to hand this discussion over to our Deputy Executive Manager, Dr. Ricky Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Executive Manager. Mr. Chairman, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of this committee. The first slide that we have up, if we could move to the next. Go ahead, identify yourself again. Yes, of course. My name is Ricky Hernandez, Deputy Executive Manager for the Guam International Airport Authority. I'm pleased to be able to present on the next slide as it relates to the Airline Incentive Program implementation performance metrics. And so just as a little bit of a background, because I know that during our last oversight hearing, we did mention the Airline Incentive Program, but just by way of background, it was in December 2023 when the FAA adjusted and amended its policy for air carrier incentive programs, which allows for some exceptions and as it relates to the revenue use policy that the airport implements and abides by as it relates to our grant assurances. But the airline incentive, air carrier incentive program was amended by the FAA in December 2023, and it was in the March 2024 board meeting. We were probably one of the first airports in the nation, U.S. airports at least, that tried to take advantage of this opportunity, especially given our recovery trajectory wasn't exactly where we wanted it to be. And in that adjustment in the policy, it allowed for providing for a significant increase in existing service for existing airlines to provide some level of incentive. And so the incentives that were provided that you see up on the screen as a summary for fiscal year 2025 were related to providing incentives through discounts because the airport cannot pay incentives to airlines, but we could provide discounts based on the rates and charges that we apply to airlines. We provided up to 50% for airlines that applied to the program. It requires an application and determine eligibility based off of the policy that the board approved. In fiscal year 2025, the total dollar incentive, and these are actuals based off of, because rates and charges are based off of variable data or variable activity, which include number of passengers, number of uses of the loading bridge, the gross takeoff weight of aircraft, and a number of other metrics. So the total dollar incentive that we have for actual for fiscal year 2025, of course unaudited, but what we have based off of what was billed is a total incentive of $941,060. That's for the full fiscal year. Total number of flights that were provided using our loading bridge use data is 623 total flights that were part of this incentivized program. Total seats on those flights are 131,000 plus. Total enplanements based off of those seats is 77,000. So if you just take the average based off of the total dollar incentive. We're looking at an average dollar incentive per flight of about $1,500. Average dollar incentive per seat came out to $7.18, and then an average dollar incentive per enplanement coming out to $12.22. Number of eligible participating airlines, eligible and participating airlines were 6. And we do note that beginning in fiscal year, January 1st, 2026, we are adjusting this to limit the program to new markets and new airlines, at least suspending the increase frequency until such time we do see some of the performance metrics improve. You will see under the financial performance some of that data that led to this decision. For fiscal year 2026, of course, these are estimates. This is estimates for the first 3 months of the fiscal year. We're looking at a total dollar incentive of $882,000. Total flights equate to about 552. Total seat capacity, we're estimating that to be about a little over 133,000. Total enplanements specific to the incentive is 74,950. And of course, the average, just looking at a side-by-side comparison, is just so you can get a feel, because one is full year, so we wanted to kind of give you an average dollar per incentive flight. So it's pretty consistent with fiscal year 25, at least the estimate for the first 3 months, $1,598 per flight, $6.59 per seat, and then $11.77 average dollar incentive per enplanement. I wanted to note that these are specific to the incentivized flights that were applied by airlines. And a number of eligible participating airlines for the first 3 months of fiscal 26, at least as of this point, is 3. And they're mainly focused on Korean air carriers. And in terms of the number of the average incentive dollar per enplanement, I wanted to just kind of make a point about enplanements. These are departures, which also include transits. And so enplanement figures, when I know that our comptroller will go over later, a little bit different than arrivals, just to reiterate that point, because the way that we look at the way that the airport really tracks passenger movements are really through enplanements, which is departures, people getting onto a plane, which includes our transit passengers. And so this is obviously with the estimates, we don't know if there might be some airlines that might apply before the end of the calendar year. And so this is our estimates as of when we submitted this presentation. If we can move to the next slide as it relates to airline incentives program, just some recent increased service. We're glad that GVB didn't report on this because it would have been redundant. So we have Korean Air, of course, second daily Incheon flight. That was effective July, ends December 31. And I know that, of course, there's discussions for those continuing. Korean Air, of course, second daily Incheon AM flight. That was effective August 1st. There's a one daily Busan AM flight that was also effective August 1st through the end of the calendar year. Added seat capacity is 25,350 seats. For Jin Air, they added a second daily Incheon flight that was effective July 1st. They have been doing seasonal charters that are going to be effective this month, especially during the peak season. Looking at 9,639 added seats for this time period. T-Way, another carrier from Korea, flying though from Osaka or Kansai Airport to Guam. That was effective July 18 through October 25. That added about 5,670 seats. And then Jeju, before they temporarily suspended, second daily Incheon flight, that was effective July 12 through October 20. 17,955 added seats for that period. If I just go on to the next slide, which will talk about some future service. Air Seoul, another low-cost carrier from Korea. They're starting one daily morning flight from Incheon effective October 27, and then they're going to have 2 daily afternoon flights from Incheon effective November 15 to December 31. So you notice these are kind of during our peak periods. 5,670 added seats monthly, and then for the total period, 17,000 for these seasonal operations. Air Busan, flying from Busan, 1 daily AM flight from Busan effective October 27, and then they're having another seasonal one extra from November 1st to December 31. So for the 1 daily flight, it'll add about 5,670 seats per month, and then for this added seasonal operation, 11,340 for that period. The new service, which of course has been highly touted, the Philippine Airlines 3 times weekly from Cebu. That's going to be effective December 17, 2025, adding about 2,300 seats per month. And then we do have Starlux Airlines charters, 6 charters from Taipei. That's beginning February 14 to 23, adding 1,100 seats for those seasonal operations. And so, we're seeing movement, and I know our comptroller will show you what that enplanement increases are year over year. But we're seeing that develop, especially toward the end of last fiscal year and then into this fiscal year. For the next slide, we have just the second item on the agenda was status of route development and partnership coordination with the Guam Visitors Bureau. So I know that Senator Bisco Lee had mentioned that we do have these weekly meetings with the Guam Visitors Bureau and our marketing team as well. And so we have been meeting at least once weekly, and then of course discussions within the week. But the meeting we do have, we do review load factors, performance over the past week. We look at it from not only a week-to-week perspective, but also a comparison to those flights that have a comparison to the prior year, because there are seasonalities in the enplanements. We do talk about upcoming scheduled flights, and so, from the airport, we look at it from a lot from an operational perspective, and so, are there any operational issues that GVB could assist us with? When we do have our inaugural flights, we look at those and coordinate to ensure that we welcome those flights. When we look at new airlines, of course, we talk about, okay, do they have all of the logistical requirements to operate at the airport, right? Do they have office space, right? Does Air Seoul have office space? Does Air Busan have office space that they're requesting? Do they have the proper landing permits? Are they in coordination with the regulatory agencies? And so the operational side of that is really a big focus for the airport, but it's also helpful when we have these meetings to discuss those because with the Guam Visitors Bureau, so that they're aware that there are these considerations on the operations side at the airport. And so as we get into some of the capital or the infrastructure readiness portion of the discussion, you'll start seeing that how do we plan ahead for these increased services, right? And what are we doing to ensure that the infrastructure is there to meet the demand? And so, a lot of these things, it's helpful as we collaborate with GVB, because also knowing what their plans are as it relates to marketing, something that the airport cannot spend money on, direct marketing. It's something that we're unable to do based on our grant assurances, but it's very helpful for us to know and coordinate with all of that, because it's it's like top of mind for us. And so when we are planning for things such as going to route conferences where we meet airlines directly, kind of like speed networking, we try to ensure that we're kind of coordinated on that. What incentives do you have? What can we show if they're not attending with us to ensure that we're all on the same page, right? And so I think those have been very helpful, especially on a weekly meeting. Those are both from the executive management level, but then also with our managers and supervisory level, having those conversations. And of course, we all know each other very well, and so it's very easy for us to continue that dialogue in between meetings as needed. Route development discussions, I mentioned, we did send a representative to Routes Asia, and so we did have some conversations with some of the airlines. There was an unfortunate issue with, I think, there was a typhoon that came during that time, so there was some reduction in the available opportunities to meet airlines, but we were able to meet with a number of airlines, including Greater Bay, which had expressed interest in flying from Hong Kong to the region. And then direct meetings with airlines and then quarterly follow-ups. And so, we understand that when we meet with airlines, we meet with their station managers, right? And these people are operational in nature, but we've found it helpful to discuss with our operational airline managers at the airport, and then also understand during these meetings that we do have, the marketing and the sales side, because we understand that what we found is that, of course, UBB works with the sales side, not necessarily with the operation side at the airport. And so it's helpful to be linking those two together and ensuring that relationship is pretty seamless. So those are some positive, not new things that we've been doing, but definitely something to highlight because there's a lot of intention behind some of these discussions and partnership, and how we are able to coordinate those things. And so, obviously subject to questions that you might have, but I'll hand it over to the executive manager and know that there's the last part of the agenda. I hand it over to the comptroller.
Hafiday, and thank you so much, Mr. Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, Vice Speaker Atta, Senator Borja, Senator Matanani, Senator Tulahi, and Senator Perez for the opportunity to present on the financial performance for the airport. I'm Daphne Shimizu, I'm the GIAA comptroller. And if you'll go ahead and move to the next slide, thank you. So with regards to our financial performance, here you will see our audited revenues at the top of the page, and versus our in-plane packs. And so you'll notice that from FY 2019, when we compare FY 24 with FY 2019, our emplanements are at 55% of what they were pre-COVID. Regarding our finances in general, our debt service coverage has been pretty good. We have, for the last couple of years, had a debt service coverage of about 1.69 times, which is higher than, of course, what the required is of 1.25. Our debt service coverage is really our ability to be able to pay our bills, and of course, that's very critical for our bondholders. So, with regards to making sure that we continue to maintain and stay on top of what's required of us for our bondholders, our board, our management has been very forward-thinking and making sure that we did in the past few years undertake some bond transactions to make sure that we continue to keep very healthy metrics. We continue to and have consistently achieved unmodified clean opinions to include for this last audit for FY 2024, which was completed this past summer. You do know, as we reported back in July, our most recent credit rating from Moody's, was Baa2, which is still investment grade. We did not get downgraded in terms of our actual rating, but what did happen was our outlook was changed from stable to negative, and that was really largely due to the slower than expected recovery from COVID, and then of course what we had to deal with in the aftermath of Typhoon Mawar, and just again the tourist numbers not really coming in where we had initially projected them to be. And because of that, that actually has caused us a lot of challenges here at the airport. We have been having to work on reduction of our expenses. And so, we are, as of August, coming in at about 12% below our budget in terms of our expenses. So we really had to try to hold the line on our expenses to make sure that we can manage and maintain our operations. And in addition to that, coming into FY26, our FY26 budget was passed by our board before August 31. And what we had to do as we came into the budget discussions is look at how we're going to reduce our expenses because, we knew that coming into FY26 it was going to be pretty challenging. And so when we compare our FY25 budget to our FY26 budget, taking out, of course, OPEB and any COLA or other types of expenses that we didn't have control over, we actually reduced our operational and maintenance budget for FY25, again, outside of OPEB and COLA. And again, what we wanted to reiterate regarding our finances is that really we continue to be challenged because of what's happening with regards to tourism. But again, that's something that we're working through via just, again, working to hold the line on our expenses. As you know, when we are at the airport, we like to talk about our financial data in terms of employments. And what is an employment? An employment is basically a departing passenger, right? So it's the departing passenger PAX. And why that's a good indicator of the financial health of the airport is because they're really, our employments are tied to the core revenues, not just the revenues that are generated by our airlines, but also the revenues, of course, related to our concessions, because they are the ones that are in our terminal, in our concourse, that before they get onto a plane, they are buying merchandise. They're buying food. They're buying, other goods that we may have for sale at our airport. And so, again, we look at our financial, one of the indicators of a financial health of the airport is employments. And if you'll move to the next slide, please. And so these are our employment packs over the last 6 years, from 2019 to 2025, and 7 years. And so if you'll notice, starting with 2019, when we had, that was pre-COVID, our employments, when we compare actual versus our forecast, they're about the same. And then each year after that, you see that there's quite a bit of a gap between what we had forecasted versus where we came in. Of course, we're happy to see that when you come into 2023, 24, and 25, we continue to see the gap between what we forecasted versus what our actual performance has been. We're seeing that gap kind of close. But we are still seeing a gap, and really, of course, that's a challenge. And again, that's why, although, we are, again, noticing an increase in our employments, we're still being very cautious about where we are with our expenses. And if you just go ahead and move to the next slide, please. And so this particular slide shows our in-plane signatory packs when we compare FY 2024 with FY 2025. And here, actually, you only see employments through August. But if you'll just notice, the orange line represents FY 2024 employments. The blue line represents FY 2025 employments. And for basically the first half of our year, we were really trending to numbers that were below what we saw in the prior year, and it was very concerning. When we got into the month of April, that was the first month of the year we actually saw our employments come in just slightly higher than what they were in the prior year in the same month. But if you'll notice, as we got to June, July, August, and those months where you'll see the number of employment packs in green, those are the months that we started to see a really significant increase, again, progressively larger increase when we think year over year for the same month the prior year, where in April we had just a couple thousand or 3,000 or so packs more than we had in the prior year. When we got into June, it was about 4,000, almost 4,000. July, we see about an $8,000 packs or employment difference. And by the time we get to August, where you see we had 109, almost 110,000 employments versus only about 93,000 in the prior year. And so again, we're happy to see the numbers. We're happy to see the employments increase. But, again, we still continue to work to be cautious with our expenses because, we know we need to make sure that we are able to stay within our budget. If you'll move to the next slide, please. And in addition to our financial performance, of course, I was going to go over what in the agenda is called the loan application, which is basically the short-term financing program for the RFP that was issued by GIAA just in this last couple months ago. And so the RFP 25-007 was issued by GIAA pursuant to 12 GCA section 50103K, as GIAA is really basically the finance manager or the finance arm of the government of Guam. The RFP was issued on September 4, and the proposal due date was September 18. And what we saw as we were working with GIAA on this particular program, we're looking to establish a short-term financing facility in a principal amount up to $15 million to really help us to support our needs, because we know, as you know, the way that our monies get spent, a lot of times, especially for our FAA grants, we pay for projects up front, and then we get reimbursed on the back end. And so, we knew that coming into this fiscal year that we would, and again, just in case that we may run into some challenges, as we're working toward paying for various CIP projects, we wanted to make sure we have some type of a facility in place. And again, to kind of help smooth out really kind of the peaks and troughs of, cash flow. And so that is really why we had worked to pursue this particular program. The status of the facility is that it was actually awarded, the RFP was awarded by the GIAA Board of Directors on October 14, 2025. And the next step now is that the GIAA and GIAA will work with the organization or the company that was awarded on the various terms, and those terms will then be provided to the GIAA board for their review and approval. And that is the next step before we can move forward with the credit facility. And this particular, I actually have been in communication with the GIAA administrator. I think one concern was that maybe this particular financing was required to be brought to the legislature for approval or authority or for approval. As I've been discussing with the GIAA administrator, the type of financing that we're seeking really is more of like a short-term credit facility, almost like a line of credit. And that particular type of a financing tool is not required to be brought to the legislature, and that's again something that I had discussed with the GIAA administrator. But really, that kind of sums up really what the loan application or the short-term financing program is, and of course I'm here to answer any questions that you may have regarding this. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we're moving on to Mr. Frank Santos that will give us some update on our capital improvements.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman, Vice Speaker, and Senators. My name is Frank Santos, a consultant for the Airport Authority. I'm providing a snapshot as of November of the airport's capital improvement projects. This is projects that are work in progress. They're not what we anticipate for 2026, nor do they exclude the large ticket projects that we had completed in the last couple of years, like the International Arrivals Corridor, over $100 million for that. For the runway rehabilitation project, which is about $30 million, and a new firefighting facility, which is $25 million. So the projects that we're presenting here there's 17 projects altogether. Like I said, $118.4 million is the total value. Of that, 84% is federally funded, or $102 million. And then the airport absorbs $16 million for all these projects. We broke them down into 3 categories, which is work in progress, actual construction, planning and design, and procurement. You got to remember, our terminal building is approaching 30 years old. We are looking at what we call rehabilitate, renew, or replace where needed. So a lot of that is included in these project or programs that we have listed. On the ones that are more visible, and we are in the closeout process of the terminal painting project, that has been complete. On the floor replacement project, we have the customs area that is being installed with terrazzo floor. That's at 55%. Then at Customs and Border Protection, the immigration federal side, we're at 45%. So overall, we're around 45% for the entire flooring project. We have completed HVAC or air conditioning upgrades and other facility improvements to the east operations area, which is being leased by the airlines. That's in punch list items. Then a big project that we have is the rehabilitation of the aprons around the terminal building. That's around $34 million, and we've completed about almost 33% of the total gates available. This project is important because there's two issues. Number one, that we do need to rehabilitate our aprons, but at the same time, we only can close so many gates at one time to accommodate this project. But Typhoon Mawar caused issues with respect to our loading bridges, so a damaged loading bridge, then therefore that gate is not usable for contact purposes with the aircraft. So there's our operations people have a day-to-day dance with how we're going to maneuver every flight around the active gates. So far, it's not complete satisfaction, but we have worked toward a successful execution. One thing is the roof project. So we are finally completed the legal reviews. It's all signed off. The contracts are executed. We are now in the building permit phase. We anticipate that notice to proceed, NTP, can be issued by December. We also have a Part 150 noise study that's critical to our community, our surrounding communities. This Part 150 noise study is a federal funding project. It addresses the noise impacts on the surrounding community. This is an update to that. The previous one was in 2003. We have completed soundproofing of 250 homes since then. We have paused that subject to the update of what they call the noise exposure map. So we have the noise exposure map has been completed. It has been submitted to the FAA. The FAA has approved it. So now we are in the second part of the Part 150, which is the noise compatibility program. We just held the public hearing for that last week. So it's within a 30-day public review cycle, which the comments are due no later than the first week of December. All the comments, public comments and otherwise, would be then consolidated into a final NCP document that will be submitted to the FAA. The FAA will either reject or approve, but regardless of what their actions are, it will be posted in the Federal Register for about 180 days before it becomes final. In the meantime, we are working with the FAA to try to move forward the sound solutions part, the actual, at least 10, 20 homes that we can work on and get that designed so by the time the NCP becomes available, the funding will be available and we can put that out to bid. Under planning and design, we do have, microgrid studies. GIAA is doing theirs. We're doing one just for the airport. It addresses of course, island power. It addresses generator power, batteries, and our forthcoming solar panels that we'll be installing on the roof as part of the roofing project. We anticipate that there'll be other renewable energy sources that will be available in the future. So we want to be able to be ready with a microgrid so that all that power sources can go into one location and then be distributed out to all the airport facilities or other facilities on airport property but owned by private operators. Under procurement, we do have, you heard about the loading bridges issue, so we actually have five bridges that it's on its phase 4 for legal review, which is contract execution. So that would take at least 5 of the gates that normally we would use for wide bodies and prioritize those gates. So hopefully within 12 months, we can have all 5 be replaced. There is a queue at the manufacturer that we're not the only ones that require bridges, so we need to get into that queue as soon as possible. We also have what we call ZEV vehicles that is currently out to bid. Its bid opening is on November 17th. Then what we have is Vail infrastructure, and that consists of about 17 units of what we call ground power for each aircraft, and 17 units of preconditioned air, that's air conditioned air that's used on the airplane. Each unit is installed to each bridge, so that's why there's a total of 17, because we have 17 bridges altogether. So that completes my update. If there's any questions on any specific project, please feel free.
Thank you. Just real quick, because I was going to add, since we're talking infrastructure, Frank, could you explain to the, and also, or even maybe the general manager, to the committee as well, because we had spoken about this, and I had spoken to both admirals regarding the military's direct jet fuel line, and that that desire for, of course, the Guam Airport Authority to be able to tap on those lines, and the importance of that, because I'm putting together a national security argument in regards to that. They are in support of that. But can you, again, holistically tell the committee regarding that and the importance and the challenges we had in the storm in attaining jet fuel?
So thank you for that question, Senator. We've been working with the governor's office and, of course, the admiral under the CMCC. And one of the initiatives is to get a joint fuel line that goes right there at the airport. You have the DOD fuel line that goes all the way up to Anderson, and our goal is to jointly use that so that we can use the fuel that goes up as Jet A, and then at the airport is when we can tap into that fuel line where we can use it for our commercial airlines, and of course the DOD assets that are up there when they do go up to the airport, and then that's where we'll add the additives that will go from Jet A to JP8 and then up to Anderson. So that's a work in progress. Before, they won't even talk to us about it. Now there's definitely active communications, and definitely JRM or the Admiral under CMCC is in favor of hopefully having some kind of joint use on that fuel line. Yes, we did have a issue in Mawar where, at this time we were trucking up all our fuel to the airport, and we saw that the demand for trucks going up to the airport needs to be enhanced. So,
okay. Senator, if I could just add,
yes.
Senator. So it's really about, as you mentioned, security and resiliency and reliability. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so for the airport, as an executive manager has mentioned, most of our fuel does move, actually all of our fuel moves over the road. And so part of some of the future developments at the airport for infrastructure are to harden that and place more of the fuel that's required at the airport for use to be at the airport. So there's a longer term plan for fuel and distribution at the airport, but facilitating that resiliency and reliability through a active pipeline is one measure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in doing so, and maybe we don't know the total cost of this, but again, both admirals had again given their assurance that they definitely want to partner up in that. But have we got a rough estimate on what that will cost us, and whether or not we'll be able to get some federal grants, as we have been in the past, to be able to offset some of maybe a local cost for that? Because and what we're putting together, of course, is a national security argument to be able to try to get, if not all the funding, majority of the funding for that. And because I know we have joint use, of course, not just the civilian airlines, but also the military planes that use the airport as well. So do we have a rough estimate on what that may cost, not knowing how much the cost offset will be?
And going back and forth with some of our subject matter experts that have, built those type of facilities, from the DLA, from the military side, their estimates are way quite higher than what we thought or that we're estimating or guesstimating. So we're looking at about $16 to $20 million if we were to fund that at the airport. And of course, we're always looking for ways to fund that. And Frank has several ideas on how we can do that. The FAA is also very much involved or looking at ways to assist us in making sure that this happens.
Mm-hmm. And that line runs pretty much close to GIAA, right?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Senator, what we're looking at is really utilizing the line that exists, right? And that passes by the airport. That's the DOD line. What we're looking at is really maybe spurring off from that line and then providing the services to additize and do whatever needs to be done technically to accommodate aircraft at the airport.
Okay.
Right? So
great.
It's not in a brand new pipeline from the port area to the airport.
No,
it's really just within the vicinity.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Also, Mr. Chairman, most airports, of course, that I visited over the past few years, most airports, of course, are independently run. They've been sourced out by independent contractors, basically. So they basically operate on silos, right? On silos. In our case here, of course, you guys are an autonomous agency, but we work closely with the Guam Visitors Bureau, incentives and things of that nature. And when we talked to other destinations, they said, oh man, we wish we could be able to do that because there's no communication between their visitors, their visitor bureau and their airport. So that being said, Mr. Chairman, again, hearing a lot about, of course, route development efforts on both agencies, right? Japan, Korea, Philippines, Taiwan. Of the current airline discussions underway, which ones have GIAA and GVB worked jointly on, and which ones are being handled independently? And how do we make sure that we're not duplicating efforts or sending mixed messages to our airline partners? Because I know there was a little bump here a while back in regards to the communication and whether it was really a 50% incentive or up to 50%. Remember that? And so that hiccup was they understood it as 50%, not up to. And so we committed then to the 50 because of the misunderstanding. So that's why, again, it's very important for the committee to make sure that, when we have oversight with GVB and the GIAA come together, so there is no communication. So we're not operating in silos like other destinations do, right? So again, of that, if GVB is marketing budget, is the gas, of course, GIA runway network is the engine. How are you ensuring that these two parts of the system are working in sync, Mr. Chair? And do you believe that coordinating today is strong enough to deliver the recovery we've promised the public?
Thank you for your question. And prior to the presentation, which is really why I wanted to allow for that presentation to occur, because Deputy Executive Manager Hernandez had showcased what efforts were being done collaboratively with GVB. And I would take it a step further. When things are going really well, you don't really have to talk to anyone. But when they start to fall apart and when we're facing these challenges, which we have faced as a result of COVID and the Typhoon Mawar, I think it's highlighted that necessity for us to work together closely. And I've worked together with Chairman Chu and the board at GVB when we started out on the Tourism Recovery Task Force. And out of that came more communication and effort between the two agencies to focus on our situation, our challenges. And even so that they had hired a consultant, which together with President Lee and Deputy Executive Manager Hernandez had gone out to the markets to do the hard work, right, which had not been done before, I believe. And that only comes when you're starting to face these challenges and having to realize that there's opportunities to improve communication, number one. But there are also roles and responsibilities, I think, that are respective to each of these agencies. And I can speak on behalf of the airport that the more technical aspects of what the role of the airport plays is really the infrastructure to facilitate the safe and efficient movement of those passengers, whether they be tourists or locals or transit passengers. And GVB having the role and responsibility of filling the seats that we can accommodate. And so I think now more than ever that collaboration is ongoing. I do believe that there are opportunities to improve always. And there are regular meetings and discussions that occur between the two agencies as we start to really face these head on by market, by passenger.
Yeah, our numbers are down, obviously, but again, hopefully with these incentives and working collaboratively, that our numbers will increase. But let me ask that because we can mark in all we can, but if our facilities can't handle, of course, the increased arrivals efficiently, we're setting ourselves up, of course, to fail, right? And so, how ready is GIAA operationally and physically to support such a surge in passenger arrivals if these incentives really, again, bring in these numbers that we're looking at? What upgrades or process improvements do you prioritize to improve the passenger flow and, say, baggage handling and things of that nature to improve the customer experience?
So I appreciate the question, and I think we're pretty far off of our peak period, right? Mm-hmm. And at a time when the airport was able to handle as many passengers as it did in 2019, and then we've suffered some damages as a result of the typhoon. So we're kind of recovering, as Mr. Santos had pointed out, some of the capital improvement projects that are ongoing would really repair damages, but we're constantly working with our federal partners, regulatory FAA partners, to continue to strengthen and harden the infrastructure that is required at the airport for safe and efficient handling, to include aprons and the roofing project as well as the loading bridges. So all of those are meant to meet or exceed the need for capacity should that arise.
Well, I mean, this is kind of like of our downtime, and this is maybe the time to get these things done, as they did with, I remember, the Crown Plaza. I think they were just going to renovate a few rooms, but then with COVID, they said, hey, this is the time to just shut it down and renovate the whole facility to be able to get it done. So I just want to make sure that we're on top of things, because I know we got some challenges with, and it's because your providers, I guess they're only one provider for your escalators and things of that nature, and so that there's constantly you're constantly challenged with those entities that are there. So I just want to make sure that in this downtime that we're improving, as opposed to when we turn that corner, that now we're having to we have to cut back on these things because we're not prepared for the surge. And I mean, I'm looking for that day, actually.
No, and I appreciate that. A lot of it is a function of cash,
yeah.
Right? And so the airport's finances are directly tied to, as Comptroller Daphne had mentioned, directly tied to emplanements. And so when we're at less than half of what we expected, there's a real tight cash crunch, and the efforts that the airport has made to reduce expenditures, and not cut to the point where we're suffering from the services that we provide to the existing mm-hmm. and current traveling public. But that is a challenge constantly for us. And so when do we start spending more on maintenance issues, which is occurring right now, and hopefully we start to see a trend of improved emplanement so that we can see the revenues that the airport needs in order to continue its operations at that level. Yeah,
and that being said, to Mr. Chair, the loan application modernization projects that are ongoing, I'm also concerned on the other side of things. I'm concerned that GIAA's plan to ensure that we can pay off this loan, right? I mean, we have challenging times, so I mean, as much as we want to get things ready and for that surge, for the turn of that corner, I don't want us to default and hurt our credit rating as well. The same token, right? I definitely would not want to see you guys or come before us to come back to this legislature and ask us to for a bailout. So what are we doing again with that? How do we balance the need for, again, this downtime to grow and we're in this loan application and all that, but that we're ensuring that we don't default on that?
Yeah, I mean, that is a challenge for us. And, while we have not taken on a loan, so to speak, right, and that's right now in Geeta's hands, I think at the airport, what we're looking at is really how do we enhance revenues? How do we diversify what we're doing today so that the future has other opportunities that are not so tied into existing airport finances and economics. And so there is a lot of effort to thinking forward about what other opportunities for revenues that the airport can generate, whether it be in developing cargo infrastructure so that we can support and align to things like logistics development, and something that Vice Speaker has proffered, which is the Free Trade Act. I think those all go hand in hand, but we need infrastructure in order to accommodate that. And so we're looking forward to revenue enhancements such as developing and diversifying what goes on the business of the airport. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. About the $9 million in aviation fuel tax arrears owed to GIAA, has the Department of Administration released any portion of those funds to GIAA? And if not, what is the current status of that obligation and how is the delay impacting your financial planning and operational stability?
If I could just ask Deputy Director.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as it relates to the past due aviation fuel tax, I know that's a topic of discussion during our last oversight. We do appreciate the legislature's provision in the Budget Act that does give the Governor's Office some flexibility as it relates to transfer authority from her executive agencies within a certain part of the budget to be able to address this past due obligation. Of course, just to give a bit of a background, because the past due aviation fuel tax, this is a federal obligation of the government of Guam to ensure that those aviation fuel tax increase that occurred in effective January 1, 2018, are provided to the airport in that area, which is, of course, the Guam Airport for airport purposes as it's considered airport revenue. And so in addressing that issue with the transfer authority, we appreciate that. And I think as we discuss where those funds will come from, the way I understand transfer authority, especially having drafted a number of budgets at the legislature several years ago, is that as the government looks at what appropriations they do have, they have to ensure that there is no impact. I guess that's the way the language is written, that there is no impact if you transfer funds from an agency. And so until such time, because it's the beginning of the year, we would likely see there being an assessment of whether there will be an impact probably closer to the middle or end of the year. And so, we are in dialogue with the Bureau of Budget Management Research as it relates to when is that possibility? When will we know that taking 2.3, 2.6 million, if it's an annual, for doing a payment over a certain period, or up to 9.2 million may be available from just the specific agencies that transfer authority may cover. As I understand it, in being someone that likes to watch legislative channel, the use of transfer authority over the past few years has been mentioned that it hasn't been used. And so, changing that narrative, seeing if there's a possibility from that transfer authority provided to pay for this, we're in continued discussions on that. And so, we'll continue to dialogue. I understand that the position from the governor has been, especially during budget discussion, has been to try to get an appropriation for that. But, of course, if you've heard from Daphne, we've been challenged because employments aren't where it should be. Any funds would be helpful to help with cash flow and would allay any need potentially for any short-term credit facility or even the use of that, as it's kind of treated as a revolving line of credit as necessary. We're not expecting to take on a full 15 million. We're looking to use that as a way to smooth out the cash flow necessary for capital projects. And so, short answer is we haven't yet received it, but I guess a function of transfer authority, makes that a little bit too early to tell if there's going to be available appropriation. But
now where are we at with that? Because I think was said that the FAA said if it was paid holistically, it was paid right out, there's no interest rate. But if you had a payment plan, then they would impose the interest, which would be tack on, I think, a couple more million to it, right?
Yeah, I think, well, the principal balance is 9.254 million. That's from January 1, 2018 through September 30, 2023. That's the amount that has been recognized. We had run some numbers based off of the interest rate that the FAA had determined. It was based off of a September 30, 2023 kind of a treasury rate rounded up to the nearest percent. And our estimates are looking at, if it was a payment plan that the FAA has determined to be an acceptable corrective action plan by the government of Guam, we're looking at anywhere between 2.3 to 2.4 million per year over a 5-year period. So, of course, if you multiply that by 5, the difference between that and 9.2 million would be kind of your interest. And so we do understand that if there was if that was covered up front, then that interest could be suspended or waived.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, of course, accountability and transparency are definitely keys, right? So with the volume of public funds and debt instruments that GIAA manages, what oversight mechanisms are in place to ensure that every capital improvement, from terminal upgrades to contractor selection, being done efficiently and with public trust in mind? Are there areas that you think that this legislature can help in streamline or strengthen those safeguards?
And thank you for the question. I believe that the processes that are in place at the airport are effective. The board receives management's recommendations, which we then would approve, whether it be contracts or procurement action. The board has approved a spending authority limit of about $100,000 to the executive manager, and beyond that requires board approval. And so I think there is currently a pretty robust process for procurement selection and management that makes recommendations to the board.
Okay. Recently, a few months ago, the legislature acted and passed a bill that ultimately became Public Law 3821, which authorizes the Guam National Authority to enter into 50-year leases for airport property and up to 15-year leases and concessions. The intent, of course, of the law was to give GIAA long-term flexibility, and you talked about, of course, the incentives, and what else can, the airport do to be able to bring in more funding, okay, to attract serious private investment, stabilize, of course, concession revenues, and allow business to confidently make capital improvements without fearing that their lease will expire before they can see a return. Can you can you walk this committee, through how GIAA has begun implementing Public Law 3821 and what internal policies or guidelines has the board adopted to ensure that these leases are structured in the public's best interests, balancing, of course, investor confidence and accountability and fair market value?
Thank you, Chairman. And first off, I'd like to say thank you. We greatly appreciate the legislature's support. We know that it took a lot of effort to come to this point to pass the bill. As a private sector guy, I think things don't move fast enough for me, and I would have hoped that this could have been done a long time ago. But this week we do have a board meeting wherein management will present the draft policies that will be tabled for the board's approval. And so I think we're moving forward. Notwithstanding that process, I've asked the airport management to start thinking about a RFI for all available properties at the airport for interested parties to seek, so that we're not just waiting for another process to be finalized, but we actually have a simultaneous effort to go out and solicit for interested parties at the airport. And we do know that there are interested parties today for ground leases, for hangars, and those types of investments that we discussed when we were handling the bill.
Mm-hmm. You know, let me ask this question, okay? Because in the 37th Guam legislature, I know it was my bill that finally became law that extended the one-year concessions, you know, given the extension because of the situation, the unfortunate situation with COVID, okay? Now that contract is coming up here, I think next year, right? With your Lotte, right? Is it Lotte? Okay.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah. Now, my concern is that I know that the airport was in a gosh, over 10-year lawsuit with duty free, and the settlement agreement does not allow any airport personnel or their agents to communicate with the current concessionaire. Now, my thinking is that should an RFP go out at this point for that area, that it's going to be a race to the bottom. You're not going to get what you're getting right now, and probably in your renegotiation, probably not going to get what you're getting right now. But how do you work with your current, I mean, I don't know how this is going to be done legally. You know, I don't want to see our airport to be like the CNMI at this point, where duty free have pulled out. And I know that in communicating with duty free, the Galleria, looks like they're, you know, Hard Rock just closed down. Yesterday was last night, was their last night of operation. It looks like the Galleria, I think its life expectancy is probably June or July of 26. And so I would hate to see the airport to be, again, with that contract ends, that they pull out, and because they've already given their exit strategy, knowing, again, that their contract is expiring. So I would hate to see our airport to be that of like CNMI as well. So what are we doing to either salvage that with the current concessionaire, or another one at this point? How are we managing that, knowing that the settlement agreement does not allow any one of yours agents to speak to each other?
Yes, thank you, Senator. I think the extension was actually a 3-year extension that was granted by the legislature, which does expire in July of 2026. And it is unfortunate because I think everyone, ourselves and GVB included, are, you know, we are in the of alignment that we want, you know, tourism to flourish, and when that does, so does the viability of a concession at the airport. I don't think the settlement agreement said we couldn't speak to each other, and you know, so there is a...
Well, in regards to extensions
okay.
of that's what I meant. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and so it was specific about what the airport could or could not do, you know, in the settlement agreement. And so if there's anything specific that, you know, can be addressed, and, you know, I've been advised by our counsel to maybe defer some of those to written responses upon written requests, just because there may be statements that could be misconstrued with respect to the settlement agreement and the relationship between the three parties. Now, I do know, and it's been public knowledge, that the existing operator has expressed its plans for an exit, which I do believe is prudent because the contract is expiring. So they wouldn't be, in the case of inventory items, they wouldn't be ordering items beyond a specific time frame, and maybe their processes require 6 to 12 months of inventory, you know, planning and purchasing. So, you know, obviously the timeline set at July of next year wouldn't allow for that. So I think there's a commercial effort by them to manage their business. On the airport side, by way of the legislation and what we presented to the board is really to allow us to go through a process of procurement, not necessarily just with leases, but also with concessions. And so we'll continue to do that because that's the right thing for the airport to do. With respect to the commercial viability of the existing operator and the current concession, I think there are certain things in the settlement agreement that, statements may be misconstrued, which probably aren't appropriate for this forum for me to remark. And so,
no, I just want the reassurance at this point, and the committee wants the reassurance that at least, I know that the parties had differed, and that's why you had a lawsuit. But at this juncture, I think if maybe the three parties, the three parties are maybe in some kind of communications that there may be some kind of agreement that they may come to. Again, I just want to prevent what happened in the CNMI to happen here as well. And I want to make sure that it's done right, it's done legally, But are you giving this committee assurance that maybe there's communication between the parties that had once been suing each other, that maybe they're sitting down now and communicating for the best of what can happen to not just the airport but the people of Guam?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I can say that there are discussions that have been held, between the parties, whether individually or outside of the airport, right? But I know that I've spoken directly with both parties, and I do appreciate your concern because it is ours as well. I think nobody more at the airport is worried about the situation should a concession not be continued at the airport whether it's with the current operator or a future operator. I think that would be detrimental to the airport's finances. So there is active communication ongoing. Whether or not that results in specific action, I don't have that answer today. But there is a lot of effort and discussion going on.
Okay. And lastly, before I ask the chair to chime in as well, okay, Vice Chair, Chairman, one-year candidate take. Does the GIAA have the internal capacity, the personnel, the expertise, and operational bandwidth to support the kind of aviation growth we're aiming for, or do you need additional tools, flexibilities, or statutory changes from this legislature to get the work done?
I could say that there's always room for improvement. And, the airport has been around for quite some time, and I think when you look at the organization that is there, there's a lot of technical expertise that exists in the airport. And airports are very unique operations in that a lot of those skill sets that are developed over time. I mean, Mr. Santos has been there for maybe a lot more years than this guy's been alive. And so there's a lot of knowledge in there. I think we often are challenged, because it is a government agency, about building succession planning and organizational development so that we achieve the most optimal resources, right, in specific positions. So I think there's a lot of room for improvement. But the team is very knowledgeable, it works very hard. And as we look at the future of where these opportunities are for revenue enhancement, I think, the airport is kind of like a little city. And so we really need to look at our commercial leasing capabilities and the skill sets around developing commercial relationships. That's not typically a government thing because we are receiving revenues. So maybe that's something that if I were to have a crystal ball, I'd probably focus a lot more on that. But the airport is chartered, with ensuring the safety and the safety of the runways and the people. So that big portion of our organization is built around the firefighting crew as well as the public safety crew, and then the terminal operations. So when you start to take a look at where those opportunities for future development and enhancement to the airport, it's really around like the business aspects, right? The commercial side of it. And I think that's an area where we could probably develop ourselves a little bit more. through training and development and some succession planning.
Okay. Well, one last question, actually. Recently, the past couple of weeks, there was, of course, an issue and a development that happened up in the airport, and there may be some legal challenges that may arise from, between EPA and development or developer or contractor, what have you up there. Would that situation impact any of the airport's plan development or infrastructure?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Chairman. No, it would not. All the runoff and drainage systems go into a large ponding basin just southeast of the airport. Mm-hmm. It's actually a large basin, and everything that used to flow down the old Navy drainage line that was been referred to is now being diverted away from that, and all airport property is going down into these ponding basins that have at least 2 injection wells. Mm-hmm. So not only collecting the water, but we're also reintroducing it down to the aquifer.
Okay, so again, the airport will not be implicated in any form of legal situation for this? I mean, I just want to make sure as we move forward that that we're clear and transparent on what's happening. I mean, because we're up there, we're like one community up there, and where does this deviate? The airport property versus private property and all that. I just want to make sure that again, it doesn't hinder your growth, and likewise, legally. You're susceptible to any
Yeah, to our knowledge, Senator, no.
Okay. Thank you. Senator Duenas.
Sis Masi, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to the Chairman Bamba as well as the entire team from GIAA being here. As once again, you've done an excellent job of very detailed questions, Mr. Chairman, so I'm just going to have a couple of focused questions for the panel. And once again, thank you for being here. I think that in the last hearing that we had, of course, co-meeting really with GVB, and I'm glad they've stuck around. I'm not sure we walked away from the hearing with both entities on this incentive program clear on what either the lines of delineation or the benefit, whether they're complementary or, kind of combined, because we see now the presentation of the results of the employments, at least from the quarterly perspective, ending last fiscal year and the perspective for going into this fiscal year. So, Ricky, I think and maybe Daphne as well, I think I'll ask it this way. Are these programs and incentives complementary to one another and mutually exclusive between the airport and GVB's incentives?
Yeah, thanks, Senator, for the question. I think when it comes to incentives for, historically our incentives have always been for new service, so new routes or new airlines. And so what we've embarked on over the last year and a half is something really brand new to U.S. airports generally, because providing incentives for increased service is not something airports could have done in the past. And so this is kind of obviously a new program that the FAA had allowed U.S. airports to provide for this increased service incentive. And so, to your question, the flexibility of providing incentives that we have is really just via discounts. And as you've seen from the Guam Visitors Bureau presentation, their incentives are paid directly. They're able to pay directly to different service providers along the tourism supply chain. And they can be a lot more creative on how they do that. They can work with travel agents, they can work with OTAs through marketing co-ops and so forth. Whereas for us, we can't pay anyone anything. We can only reduce our rates. That's what's allowed. And so we think it's supplementary. It's a supplemental, offering to airlines It's only airlines that we could provide these to because they're the only ones that we charge. And so, the creativity around, our hope is always trying to get more flights in, get more seats available, and of course, ultimately, more passengers in those seats. And so it's definitely something that is new. It's definitely something that, is added to a Guam package. And as we go out and seek not only new air service, but even throughout this year, seeking increased service from existing airlines, it was obviously an added benefit. It definitely, I like to always mention this, that the airport rates and charges, on average, nationally, internationally, is about 5% of the airfare. And so depending on which airline you may talk to, that might be, something that if you get a discount on that, whether it's a certain percentage, you think about it's a percentage off of an average of 5% of airfare. And so, I bring that up because, airport rates and charges is a small portion of the cost to airlines. Other larger costs, of course, is fuel, crew, and, other services that are outside of what the airport charges. So we definitely think it's a benefit to airlines. But if I were to take the airline's perspective and say, where can I get any kind of discount or any kind of incentive? Of course, they look at it from that perspective. And what we have strived for is when they look at Guam, they're not looking at Guam Airport and what does GVB have. We're looking at it from a more of a holistic perspective.
That makes it a lot clearer to me, and thank you, Daphne, for and the chart really helped. I mean, it really showed that you had otherwise what could have been a flat line or maybe even a downward trend. You had a significant upward trend on the basis of which you did this. And I like the fact that your approach to this new fiscal year is the incentives on the new routes, and it looks like it's going to bear that same fruit. So I'm really rather excited about this going forward. Now, and so the way I see it, GVB's got this effort to basically continue to try to bring visitor arrivals and enhance, of course, our overall, annual PAX arrivals, which is, of course, a great thing to do, and we're optimistic about that. The way I'm seeing the employments really is a revenue basis for the airport. Would that be an appropriate way of delineating that? Although it's probably got a mutual beneficial opportunity, but this is a revenue enhancement for the airport.
Yes, no, that's a good way of looking at the data point of an employment, because as Daphne mentioned, they are departures, and so, as we look at where our revenue base is, we do receive, we do charge rates for arrivals, right? There's an arrival fee, and then there's an immigration fee for international travelers. But when we look at departures, that's where a lot of spend happens, a lot of dwell time as passengers are departing and so forth. And it also captures all those transit passengers that don't necessarily, leave the airport and are staying at the airport.
So, Ricky, Dr. Hernandez, I go to this, and I just want to say this to the panel. It just gives me a little bit more assurance in your aggressive move here, because you are going out for bridge financing, and I'm happy to hear that what that's designed to do is to basically give you that security of having that covering lag of any interim cash management you need, as well as covering the potentiality of what the principal and interest will be on that line of credit. Is that something that's appropriate description, Daphne?
Yes, but what I forgot to mention earlier is that the way that this particular RFP was laid out, one of the items is that we actually, and we're grateful for the opportunity to do this because we want to make sure, as the Deputy Executive Manager mentioned, that we address any kind of peaks and troughs, right? Any kind of smooth out our cash flow. So when we have some payments that we may have to make that we know we're going to receive funds for later, that we're able to go ahead and have those monies up front. But really really one of the terms is that we have up until September 30, 2030 to actually draw on it. So really, although we're utilizing this and we're moving forward with it, we're hopeful that we won't have to use it, but we want to make sure that if we do need it, that we have the money to go ahead and so we won't hold up any of the projects, the large capital projects that we have ongoing that Mr. Santos had kind of mentioned.
Well, you kind of gave me my segue because that's where I'm going next. But yeah, I appreciate that, and because that's what it looks like. You know, obviously, on the match here, you're doing well on your $102 million in federal dollars and an outlay of $16 million locally. So it does make sense. I mean, if you have any bumps or fits, because I'm going to go to Frank here next on what Senator Lujan was talking about, and you know the general manager as well, saying, you know, you in order to get back to your pre-Mawar situation, you got to speed things up, particularly on ramps and some other capabilities. So that tool, and I'm glad you're stating that as that you're looking to put a tool in the toolbox as opposed to just saying, hey, we're going to go out there and grab 15 million, is really important to me. Before I go over to Frank, I want to just mention to you, Ricky, I will work closely with you with OFB. I'm aware of the issues surrounding the authorization versus the appropriation, and I want to be clear because I know you're very keen on this as well. One of the things we did that, and the reason why we did that was because we knew even in this close of the fiscal year, looking at close to 100 million in excess revenue, we knew that we continue at this legislature to appropriate when we know that there's cash available. And one of my approaches is that when we have the budgets that we've been passing on a conservative basis, and we realize that those monies are there and the cash is embedded within, you know, the portfolio really of the government in terms of what DOA has and what the cash management is, I feel comfortable appropriating knowing at that level, you know, and so I will work with you if we have to change that over. But I knew that at least the debt service for this year, I'm hoping that that's the only one that will contain any type of interest. So I'll work directly with you and with you know, BBMR to make sure that as the quarters lay out, particularly after the first quarter, and we do have good news that you know, the government's opening, so that might change the position as well as some recent appropriation that we've done. So I've got a lot in my mind with regard to that. I haven't forgotten you. So I know that that's you know, something we'll need to probably flip over in the budget, but I wanted to reassure the people and you that we did that for a specific purpose, is to be able to track properly and make sure we're prudent financially and then make the move for the appropriation within the budget so that we don't continue to stack appropriations up. Frank, so what I'm trying to do here is get to you as well. As Senator Lujan pointed out, our chairman, that, you know, really structurally, all the capital improvement projects that you've laid out are critical to restoring the capability for receiving aircraft and the overall operation. So is that where you see your project list that you put out as being enhancing that and getting us there as we move towards increasing capacity once again and traffic?
That's correct, Senator. And it includes everything from life safety issues, because we also are looking at upgrading our fire alarm, fire suppression systems. We're looking into accessibility. So we have a program for the ADA review assessment. So not only are we looking at what we need to do in the future, because one of the things that we did during COVID was in 2019, where one of our bottlenecks was security screening. So during COVID, we decided that we're going to take that opportunity, and so we expanded our screening lanes from 5 to 7. So we have 7 in place already, and now the question is, do we have enough gates? And the need for gates is all based on the peaking factors, like all these airlines are scheduling to come in at the same time. So of course you're going to run out of gates, but if we spread out the peaks, we have enough gates to handle 5 times the amount of passengers that we have now. So why are we going to try to expand our footprint when we have not maximized the use of our existing? But the thing is that we need to keep up with our existing and keep it maintained, keep it operational, and modernize it where we can. So one of the things I did not mention was, our what we call the conveyance devices, elevators, escalators, moving walks. So if you go through there, you see maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or more that are not operational. So we do have a program, actually not listed here, but FY26 to start that process. So we're thinking ahead, but we're also taking care of what we need to do now. So
I appreciate that answer because my Garmin watch was really happy with me on the personal travel that I had done last week, and all the steps that I got going up to gate 19, I think it was, or somewhere around there. Yeah. And I was watching as I was passing by going, man, I know we have structural issues, we have gate issues and the like, but boy, it sure seems to me like if your configuration and what you're planning to do, you can handle that traffic if it's focused, and it sounds like you're on point with that.
Yes. Thanks.
Sounds good. I guess I would just close with this, and I'm glad, I feel as though talking about the incentive program, understanding the revenue opportunity for the airport, being complementary to GVB's presentation on what they're doing. I mean, I know we've asked this question, but I just, Chairman Bamba, I appreciate your comment. It's very well taken that you're absolutely right. In times of plenty and good, we kind of just operate in our silos and, do our thing and maybe have a lunch with one another from time to time here. But I just wanted you, from the general manager and the chairman's position to just reiterate once again to the people that you are working very closely with GVB and you understand that the two of you, it's really a dance. And that without this absolute, almost seamless cooperation, we lose ground if that's not really top of mind and operationally.
No, thank you, Senator. I do believe that it's an unfortunate occurrence that we have to face these challenges, but it does bring out the opportunity for us to improve. And from the highest levels at the board leadership level to the management level of both agencies, I do see that there is a lot more collaboration, and we are aligned in that this is such a critical industry for our economy and for the livelihood of our people that it behooves us to do a lot more and work a lot more efficiently together. And so we here at the airport are very aligned in collaborating with GVB on those measures.
Senator, can you comment on that? Because I just want to make sure that it's on the record, really.
Oh, definitely, Senator. So as far as GVB and us is concerned, very good collaboration within, and that's why I committed that my deputy and our marketing people on a weekly basis, they are meeting with GVB to make sure that we move our initiatives forward and stuff. So.
Thank you. I got to say that my personal travel was to Taiwan, so I came back on a full plane. I was quite happy with that on Saturday. People look excited and wanted to come to Guam. The terrazzo's looking wonderful. It looks like it's about, maybe 50%?
We're about 45%. But you saw in one of the pictures here on the slide how the terrazzo floor is coming out to be, and it's really, really looking good. And putting that floor down versus carpet, we don't have to worry about another super typhoon and then we have to shut down for because we have carpet or mold issues that are going. Once we get the water out, we're ready to go.
It looked great, and also your staff guiding everyone it looked very efficient and looked like everybody got cleared pretty quick. Because I got to tell you, my personal experience leaving Taiwan, that was, we complain about our airport coming in here a little bit. It's efficient, but man, if you're lining up in economy, I took economy, paid myself, but you're telling me lining up there, it's probably an hour through that line, and then the line getting through you, it's about an hour and a half by the time you're to the gate. So being efficient here is important because they've already added about an hour and a half just leaving country, right? Not even their transportation to the airport. So I appreciate what looked very attentive, and it looked like a very efficient process. So with that, I want to just say thank you to you guys. Operationally, I think your function is you've always been a very high performing, airport, and I'm sure of that. I'm glad we've been able to meet out some details here with regard to what's going forward. We look forward to your progress, and once again, I know GVB appreciates everything that you're doing to get this process moving and continuing forward. Vice Speaker, do you have any questions at this time?
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you to the panel for being here this afternoon. I know it's been a long day, and I think GVB purposely did that to keep you guys back here, but you're keeping them back too. I'm just glad to hear everything that's going on at the airport, the work that's in progress, the planning and design. Mr. Chairman, you brought up the issue about looking for tenants now for long-term leases, and I think that's what's important, not just to look what we're doing to work for today, but what are we doing for the future, and how is it that we'll be able to not just expand the footprint of the airport, but the properties, and how do we make best value out of them? And I think that's that goes back to the 50-year lease. that was an issue, but I'm full support. I'm very supportive of the airport in doing what they need to do, and though I said it before, and I'll say it here today, whatever we can do to assist you guys to get issues moving forward so that we be able to get these properties leased or rented, whatever it may be, so that we can improve the income coming into the airport authority and hopefully bring more diverse economies, businesses here to the island. And I think that's going to be a plus for us, whether it be aviation maintenance or what aircraft parking or hangar parking, whatever it may be, we'd be able to best get that done as soon as we can. Frank, I think I see a lot of your work in progress and a lot of the planning and design, but is there restrooms that are included in these work in progress or plan and design?
Definitely, and then I know Frank didn't put it out, but as far as the when we set the ADA facilities and stuff, we were incorporating the restrooms to be part of that, where we're going to make sure that we upgrade our restroom facilities even better than what it is now. So we really need to upgrade our restrooms. It's outdated, and we're going to upgrade that.
So that's in the plan, or it's in the works?
It's part of the ADA contract, or the bids that are going to be going on.
And ADA initiatives are federally funded.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, but more importantly, right, the experience of the travelers going through, and what is it that they're experiencing when they land or when they leave our island, right? And when we take off and you go use the restroom before you leave, and you got the fan on the floor that's, I don't know what's blowing up, so I just go back out, and I don't want to use that one. Right? We just got to see what we can do to keep improving our facilities so that we be able to have that long-term and that returning client, that passenger that says, hey, I want to go back, not just to experience Guam, but to experience the airport again. Get those technologies in there that you see at other airports, and how is it that we be able to do that and enhance our facilities here? Because I think, just like with Guam Visitors Bureau, working to enhance our local economy, right? What are we doing to enhance the experience for our visitors that come to Guam? And the first thing they do when they land is they see the airport. Everything from the jetway to the escalators, whether they're working or not. The walk-a-lator that takes you from the TSA up to Gate 19, is not working. Half of it works, the other half doesn't. I mean, those are the things that I think makes a difference. It's always the little things that adds up to the big thing, right? So we get the facilities painted, and I saw that here, terminal painting, and I really don't have a lot of questions for you folks. I just want to let you know that everything that I see that's going on up there is it's great improvements, and I think that you're on the right track. And to keep that going and ensuring that what we can do to ensure that revenues can come in and the different diversifications of things that you guys bring into airport experience, improving the facilities and the area around there is great. So thank you for all that you guys do.
Thank you, Senator. And I can assure you, with respect to the current state of the facilities, they are old and they are tired, but that doesn't mean we take our eye off the ball. This panel here knows that I'm probably the most critical when it comes to the customer experience, because sometimes when you're a little too close to the action, every day you're in the airport, you may not experience this or you may not see it. And I think, I've been pretty critical about it with management, and they've taken that to heart. And so, there is a maintenance contract that's going to be starting, I guess, soon.
December 1st.
Yeah. And there's a new maintenance provider, and my expectation is that improves the current state of the facilities, including the restrooms. But going forward, I think it's having that perception of really what does that experience to a customer look like, a traveling customer, and which we all are if we're at the airport, whether you work there or you just visit, but you are a customer of the airport, and so. That whole experience, whether you're a tourist or a local or a transit passenger, is important. And so I think I've been very critical of the airport in that respect, and I think you'll see improvements.
Yeah, definitely. And, I think also the concession areas, right, whether downstairs or, to provide that, little snack stand or whatever it may be, downstairs or the snack bar that's up there, continue to improve on those type of amenities, right, for those that are saying goodbye to their loved ones or those that are greeting people that are coming to the island, and what is it that we can do to improve that, and also the restaurants that are currently inside the airport, and how does their quality of the food and the quality of the service that they're giving, is that something that's also a part of the airport experience that you guys are providing and that you guys are looking to update and upgrade, right?
Yeah, and to that point, we want to say thank you very much, because I think you're going to start to see the benefits of the legislation that you all had supported, because it was meant to do that. I think, it was really to give us the opportunity and the flexibility to develop these, not just revenue opportunities for the airport, but the experiences for the traveler.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. Senator, thank you for that, and also to your team.
Thank you, Senator.
Masi, Vice Speaker Ada. Senator Tulahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your presentation and your work. Just to follow up on the rules and regs for the concessions, are those you said are going to be entertained at your next board meeting? Is that those are going to be consistent with the executive order? Yes, and you said there are already rules in place for the real property, because the law required that the real property rules and procedures were going to be adopted by the board. There's going to be a fiscal assessment before that. Are those also going to be entertained at that Thursday meeting?
Yes, Senator. That's on the next board meeting on Thursday. What will be discussed is the beginning of that public comment period. So, a minimum 30 days, and then we'll have a public hearing held on the draft policies, as well as the included with the fiscal assessment, and then from there, compile comments as needed, and then we'll be able to start really pursuing, especially what the chairman had mentioned regarding all of our properties.
All right, and then the executive order for the concessions said that they were making certain recommendations regarding appeals process and waiving sovereign immunity, but that required legislation. So are your rules going to be on hold until the legislation is passed?
Yeah, at this point, what we do have is actually on Friday, November 7th, our proposed policies for solicitation, selection, and award for concession agreements is actually posted online to kickstart that public comment period. In addition to that is a fiscal assessment. It is consistent with the executive order to the extent of the portion that you mentioned. There is a replacement appeals process that was placed into that. And we're going to be reaching out, especially this week and into next week, to try to get everyone's comments as it relates to that process.
So does that mean after 30 days, your rules will be effective regardless of the legislation?
We did build in an appeals process that does have a third-party review on it. Once the 30 days is up, we will hold at some point after the 30 days. It may not be exactly 30 days, but it'll definitely be more than 30 days. We'll have the public hearing process. As we see it, based on the executive order, we will be looking at the board approval, and then it ultimately goes to the governor for her approval.
The rules for concessions, but
yes.
But does it include, she said, while the executive order requires GIAA to promulgate policies to address such appeals, the policy shall state that they are not effective until the legislature enacts laws authorizing such appeals and waiving sovereign immunity. So is that what the rules say?
Yeah, the rules draws out an appeals process with an appeal panel.
With a legal panel?
With an appeal panel.
Not with the public auditor or the courts?
No, because the law does have to change for that. We are supportive of that, but in the meantime, we wanted to ensure that we start this process because of the impending expiration of concessions.
Okay. And so the chairman of the committee here talked about the 50% promise to be, incentives, but he said that those have been honored now?
Yeah, we've been working, and to the credit of the discussions surrounding working with GVB, we have been working with them as it relates to the expectation of 50%, and of course we provided 30%, and so we understand that that is something that's built into that promise.
You mean they're going to do that in the future? It's not done yet?
Yes, as I understand it, there are some funds set aside for that.
Okay, so this kind of obligation has not been addressed. It's not taken care of yet.
We've been coordinating with we've been discussing with our airline partners, so there's some awareness of it.
But the person who said we kind of breached our agreement with them, has that been resolved or not yet?
From what I know, there's been conversations on it, and so, the airlines had expectations for it, and so, of course, in talking with them and in coordinating with GVB, I'm not sure if it's actually been paid, but we're trying to meet that expectation.
All right.
There's work toward that, if it hasn't already been communicated.
All right. So that's part of GVB's incentives, and when you pointed out your incentives on page 3 of the slides, so you talk about the cost, right? Total cost of the incentive, $941,000 for FY25, and then $882, a little less for FY26. So this is like a reduction in fees, right? That the airport is providing, and this is only your part. So if we would say the Guam incentives, we would add this together with the GVB incentives?
That's correct.
I just want to confirm that.
Yes.
We're not duplicating reports here. Okay. And then as to the short-term financing that you discussed, so I understand Gita is the one who went out and got the RFP that they put in place. What started that? What projects are you looking to fund with that? Mm-hmm.
And so, of course, we have been expecting that we would at some point be able to begin to receive some of the aviation fuel tax the prior year. And so because we, I guess at this point we're not sure how much or when it's going to really happen. What we wanted to do was, again, make sure that we did have some additional monies or some opportunity to get additional cash if we need. And that is why we are moving forward with this.
But for what projects?
And so we do have several projects that we have. Maybe Frank can speak to them.
That's the projects that Mr. Stuff, the capital improvement projects that we identified.
I can just add here, Senator, if I may. As our airport consultant Frank Santos mentioned, we do have $118 million in capital projects. Those are of course, funded FAA. In most cases, 90% FAA, 10% airport. And so the short-term credit facility, we hope we don't have to use it, but there are, as Daphne mentioned, peaks and troughs during the year. And as these projects continue to be completed, there might be large payments in 1 month that we may need to draw down some funds for. But then, of course, because it's something that we could draw down on, we definitely do want to ensure that those funds are paid back. And so in terms of, what projects, we're expecting not to use it, but we definitely want it to be, we think it's fiscally prudent to have some backup if it's necessary.
All right. In an article where the GIAA director is quoted, she says that the approval of the RFP was the start, but should the airport wish to apply for a loan, it would need to meet with create the terms and conditions, present the loan or bond proposal to the Guam legislature and governor for approval. Is that your understanding? Because you said it doesn't require legislative approval.
So, we are aware of that particular news article. I did actually speak directly to the administrator for GIAA regarding that article, and she did confirm that the credit or the type of facility that we're intending to undertake or move forward with, it does not require legislative approval, ma'am.
Yeah, can I add to, Senator, I think there may have been some confusion because in that same meeting, there's an RFP for the airport's underwriter, of which that requires legislative approval for any future borrowing as it relates to the loan application. That might have been kind of
well, she was asked about that too and said it was the same process. So you're saying you guys can borrow $15 million without any legislative approval?
There's currently statute that allows for
loan
the borrowing.
line
Yeah,
credit?
we did borrow earlier and we've paid that
Yes.
off, and so there's existing authorization.
The under your projects, you list this veil, and then you talk about electric vehicles and charging stations. But I thought I overheard you say to someone else about what are those called? Not the
Microgrid?
the elevators, the escalators. I don't see those here. I mean, are they?
That's in our FY26. This one is up through FY25, work in progress.
I see.
FY26, we don't have the money yet, so we're not putting it out.
Okay.
That's
But
for
you
the conveyance
anticipate
devices.
doing that?
Yes, we do. We are.
All right. So you have anything in writing from GIAA regarding that, this funding, like the mechanism or, something formal, and that has been reviewed by your council as well? Or by the board or anyone?
Senator, if I may add, our airports enabling legislation provides for a 5-year loan, regardless of, it didn't specify amount, so it's within that 5 years. 5 years or less, it does not need to go through the legislature. It's in the legislation.
I know. Well, I just find it
Okay.
curious that we're going to use this loan borrowing after we just authorized 50-year leases or longer and concessions with really only the airport determining the rules. I just think that there could be some transparency in regards to this. So do you have anything formal that we could look at that has been given to the board to review or that the board approves or the board sent to GIAA to start this process?
So as I mentioned, the process is that, GIAA actually did work on the
Yes,
issuing
they said
of the
they worked
RFP.
with the airport.
Yes, and then they, their board actually approved it. But the process is that it's the GIAA board does go ahead and move forward with approval of the awarding of the RFP. And then after that, the negotiations with the organization that was awarded, that happens. And then from there, any of the terms, those actually get, at the point that we're done with the negotiations, we will present that to the GIAA board for their review and approval. So that's the process.
So you're saying there's no correspondence at this point between GIAA and the airport board regarding this whole process, that it was just started?
No. So of course we actually did initiate the discussion.
Yeah, that's what I want to
with
see. I
GIAA.
just want to see the documentation, how this is described, what purposes it was described for, things like
Sure,
that.
we can provide you with that, ma'am.
Thank you. The, sorry, Director, you said there was a $16 to $20 million cost. Is that in regards to the fuel line that you were referring to?
That's an estimate, or we say guesstimated cost of what, if we were to build the facilities at the airport to have their holding facility reserve, and then to mix the fuel from Jet A to JP8, right? So if we were to do all that, that's the guesstimated cost from our subject matter experts that it will cost us to have that done at the airport.
All right, and so in
And
lieu
that's
of...
depending on when it's done.
The what?
That's depending on when it's built.
Right, that's
if it's
correct.
done soon.
But at that time that we were going through the process, that's where they were estimating at.
All right, and in lieu of that $16 to $20 million, you're saying you want to try to tie in with or have joint use of the fuel line? Is that in one in lieu of the other?
That was our goal, is to have a joint fuel line, because it's already there. We're just trying to make use of what they have there.
Yeah. So does use of that require an investment like this?
To use the pipeline?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It's going to also require a $16 to $20 million investment?
On behalf of the airport, I think the estimate was around $20 million.
$20 million.
Right. So and that's where we're working with Frank and, of course, FAA. What part maybe can FAA support on this? Maybe all. So it's something that it's a work in progress.
And that's, again, the argument we're trying to put together to hopefully get that whole thing funded, because I'm trying to put together, of course, a national security argument in regards to that, because it's a joint use right now.
That's right. Yeah. What may be even better if possibly DOD can fund
Sure,
the whole
absolutely.
issue.
Absolutely. And again, I got the initial thumbs up from both admirals that they want to cooperate to be able to get that done, because they know the importance of the joint use of the airport, and
That's right.
they need it for their operations as well.
And one of the things that supports that, Senator, is that GIAA is used as a spoke and a divert facility for especially DOD assets.
That's right. I was just going to ask you. So they don't need that as part of their divert airport use?
Right. So that will support their usage up there.
Can you remind me again if the airport, I know what this was discussed at the last hearing, but I can't find my notes from that. What does the airport get for use as a divert airport?
We don't get anything financially, Senator, but because of all the FAA grants that we get, those are the things. Plus, if you remember, NAS was there and stuff. So part of the, of course, agreement that when we took over, that continues to be that.
So you're hoping that this is going to be in line with that they're going to allow joint use of the fuel line, but still we are going to have to invest $20 million in order to do that. Or you're going to try to get a grant for this $20 million?
That's our goal, is to try and get a grant, or hopefully DOD can possibly help us in the funding.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those questions. As a matter of fact, that's why, I asked that question, and for Frank to inform the committee, because we're working closely, of course, with the Congressman's office to make those arguments again, for hopefully a 100% DOD funding in regards to that, or whatever other entity it may be, in regards to that. So I'm glad now that, of course, the federal shutdown has been lifted, and so now there'll be greater communication now with that. But thank you for that. Senator Ferris.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good afternoon. probably try to make this short. I know we had a long day today. So a lot of the questions were asked. A lot of my concerns was regarding this $15 million, I guess, credit. And, you know, it's a cause of concern that it is not going through the legislature, but I do see that, you know, in your enabling statutes for 5 years. But again, you know, the concern is that should, I guess, interest rates, do you have any idea of what the interest rate is going to be for this?
Not at the moment, but definitely as we go through negotiations, that'll be something that'll come up.
Yeah, so, I mean, the thing is, you know, it seems like the airport was in dire straits, and here we are incurring potential more indebtedness, which is not a good sign in my book, to incur indebtedness in a time of you know, lower revenue streams and such. And so, can somebody explain to me why this is needed?
Senator, thank you for the question. This is really it's a credit facility, and it's about timing and cash flow. And, you know, we are utilizing the credit facility, or we hope to not have to utilize it, but in the event that we do, it's really about the match that's required for the capital improvements when you're looking at the grants that we're applying for with the FAA. So that's the hope. I mean, if we had projected enplanements or met our projected enplanements, I think the revenues would support the operations as well as the matching requirements for the airport. This is really just to give us that assurance that at some point, should we need to execute a project or a grant, that we would also have the share that the airport is obligated to.
So have you done any calculations to support that? Because, yeah, right now I'm seeing if we're going to borrow money, we're going to be paying more for finance money versus relying on revenues, which we don't have to pay any additional fees. So has there been any kind of calculations to show that this will help the airport versus hurt the airport financially?
Thank you, Senator. So again, to go back to it, the hope is that we won't utilize it. And I know Senator Duenas did actually speak on the possibility of addressing some language with regards to our prior year aviation fuel tax. And initially, how we kind of came up with the 15 million or up to 15 million is because we had the 9.2 million in aviation fuel tax. And then at the time, we were also waiting on our insurance claim payment of 5 million, which had not come in. But we did actually receive our $5 million in insurance claims. But the RFP terms actually specified up to 15 million. So that's why we continue to speak on this 15 million. We're hopeful that if we do get that 9.25 million or some portion of it, that we will not actually have to use this. But where we are, the status is currently that we, you know, the RFP was issued. And so, again, we wait on, I guess, further discussion with Senator Duenas on that. But, you know, really it's the current status of where we are.
Okay, so it seems like maybe the solution is appropriations versus borrowing money that's going to cost more. That, to me, would be the ideal solution to this. Because basically you're saying you're trying to offset the loss of aviation fuel tax.
Yeah,
so perhaps finding another offset somewhere in the budget rather than costing the government more money down the road. And, you know, to me, that seems to be more the reasonable approach.
Thank you, Senator, for that.
So the other question I have is regarding your enplanements. And so you do mention in your presentation that there was increase in flights, but however, your estimated, I guess, percentage, there's a drop in percentage enplanements from 25 to 26. And I know you discuss about load performance, right? So to what extent is increasing flights going to, I guess, how do you gauge these things as far as metrics? By, you know, increasing the number of flights, as far as cost? You know, how do you want to maximize your revenues, I suppose, when it comes to increasing flights versus maximizing the enplanements?
Yeah, I think everything, if I may, Senator, thanks for the question. I think with everything, it starts with getting a flight here But it really depends, and to your question, it really depends on the type of aircraft, where it's coming from, and of course the market surrounding that and seasonality. And so, as we look at flights, and load factors, those are always dependent on those different factors. But we always want to see load factors that are above 70%. That would be a decent sign that those routes are healthy and favorable. We have seen many of our load factors for certain flights above 85, 90%. And so, it really just depends on seasonality, type of aircraft, and so forth. But, when we look at additional flights, our capacity at the airport has, as Mr. Santos mentioned, we have excess capacity. Even at peak times, when airports really, when we plan around facilities and infrastructure, we look at what is our peak hour during the day, and how do we plan for that so that our facilities don't get, overwhelmed. And so even with our peak hour, we still have some excess capacity. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, maybe I'm just not reading the data properly, but on your third slide, I believe. So I just did a quick calculation as far as percentage, I guess, filled seats or filled enplanements. Enplanement is basically when you're leaving, right? Okay. So it's only 56% for 26. How did you get the load factor of 70% or 80%?
Yeah, so that figure in fiscal year 26, again, that was first quarter. We did work with our airline partners to kind of get a good estimate. Not all of them were able to respond, at least the ones that are participating. But those are just estimates in terms of, I'd say, prior month data. And then maybe, I'm not sure if they use booking data that they may have. But we work with the airline partners there's a lot of work that went into that 74,000 there. But of course, that's just an estimate. The extra work that might be done in marketing and trying to get more interest in some of these seats is going to be a driving factor to see that hopefully go upwards.
So is that synonymous to load factor?
Yeah, load factor, I guess the way we think about it is just number of people in an aircraft versus the actual capacity of it.
Yeah, because it's way off. Because you said you can get 70 to 80, 85 to 90, but I'm seeing only 56%.
Yeah, 70 is a good number. So obviously, what this reflects is some need for some obviously room for improvement.
Okay, and the next another slide. This is financial performance, signatory enplanements versus total revenues. So it looks to me there's no correlation between enplanements and revenues. Can you explain that?
Sure. So there are a few things that to take into consideration with regards to our revenues. Our revenues consist of our signatory airline revenues, which basically are what we call our rates and charges. And those rates and charges, as part of our signatory airline agreement with the various signatory airlines, there is a requirement that the airlines do, through their rates and charges, cover our operation and maintenance expenses, right? And so there's that component of it. Then there's our non-signatory or our non-airline revenue, like our concessions. We have other revenues as well, our passenger facility charges, right? So those are a separate component. And then the last component is our grant revenue. And so, like, for example, in FY 2022, where you see we had $83.94 million in revenues, but we had only 408,000 enplanements. That's because during the COVID time, we had received a significant amount of federal funding. And so those years are anomalies, really. That's why it looks like that. But then FY23 was when the federal government really started to scale back and not provide us with, of course, as much federal funding. And so then you see our revenues drop. In FY24, we actually saw a bit of an increase in, first of all, we had our the aviation fuel tax, which we reported as revenue when we had determined that it was actually due. And so that's why you see kind of a large spike in our revenues in FY 2024. And so, yes, you're right. This particular slide, the revenues and employments are not exactly, they're not exactly directly related because there are other revenues included that are not related to employments.
Yeah, Senator, you have a good eye. I mean, there is obviously on this slide, there's no correlation. It doesn't appear with employments and revenues, but just to reiterate our comptroller's point, I think, if you took out those federal operating grants that we had and just kind of compared airport rates and charges, you'll see that there is pretty much a direct correlation.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And then on the next page, it talks about actual versus forecasted. And so if I can ask the president of GVB, if she can come to the table. I do have a question regarding this slide. So in the financial performance, it states about 1,050,698 actual employments. Does this jive with the data that you provided earlier?
I'm sorry, Senator. Are you able to pull up the slide? I'm not sure which one you're referring to.
Yeah, if someone can provide her the, if staff can provide her the.
Senator, if I could add while they're putting that up, so these numbers are from airport's budget. The difference between employments and maybe what the arrivals that GVB presents, of course, there are two different numbers. They do track each other because typically we have same number of arrivals versus same number, similar number of departures. But employments is departures. GVB does track their own arrivals data a little bit separately. Their arrivals data, of course, that is presented is specifically visitors, right? But when we talk about our employment data, ours is everyone. So if you've traveled 2-3 times in 1 year, of course, we count that every single time. It also includes our transits. And those could be locals, they could be residents, they could be visitors. So the numbers that you see here is just a budget to actual for employments. But employments do track, if you see historically throughout the years, if you look at, when we talk about employments publicly, we say airport at our best year was 1.89 million employments. But when you think about the best visitor arrival year, it's 1.6. And so it's because there's a difference between employment and arrival. And so but they do track each other. Our best year was the best year in tourism arrivals. And so there's a little bit of a difference, but the way we are budgeting or forecasting for these arrivals, we work in consultation with our airline partners. And so you'll notice fiscal year 2020, 1.9 million employments, not knowing COVID was going to happen. If you look at fiscal year 21, 1.14, a substantial decrease. But if you think at the time when we're doing this budget, we're doing it in July of the previous fiscal year. And so unbeknownst to us how long COVID would last, there was still a significant decrease to 1.1. And as you can see over time, the uncertainty in not only COVID, impact of MOAR, the unbeknownst to us, the currency exchange issue, has really driven some of those forecasts down. But, these employment numbers, of course, are in consultation with our airline partners. And so we've seen that we've gotten closer and closer. You also see that our projection for fiscal year 25 was an improvement in employments. We do have a lot of transit passengers, and our transit passengers between now and pre-COVID have almost basically recovered. And so that's why you might see that maybe arrivals year to date that GVB reports is less than what it was last year. But when we look at employments, which includes transits, which have recovered, you'll see that we have a slight increase year over year, at least projection-wise, for employments.
And so do you have that data as far as transit? So
yes, we do.
We can actually collate or at least see if those numbers match up with
certainly
GVB's.
we actually have we have data online as it relates to employments, but certainly we can provide the breakdown of the employments by transit and by departures. And so we have those broken down internally. So we have that data.
Okay, so President Lee, you had a chance to take a look at that slide. And what is the process of the data that you're collecting as far as visitors How do you collect that?
So there are a number of different ways that we collect data, Senator. Some of the information that we shared is through exit surveys. Some of the information that we shared is through our electronic declaration form. What would you like to know?
Yeah, I just wanted to know why the difference, because you mentioned, I believe in your testimony earlier, about 739,000 visitors. This one has 1 million, so I just wanted to see
Yes, so
why
the
is there a difference
discrepancy, the discrepancy is exactly as Dr. Hernandez described. Their emplanement stats also include transiting passengers, and ours are for arrivals.
Okay.
So for local visitors
we concur with Dr. Hernandez.
Yes.
Okay, appreciate it. The other thing that came up in this, thank you. Mr. Santos, you mentioned that the water is going to be injected into the aquifer. Or if you can clarify that, please.
As part of our other projects, including our runway extension and as well as site preparation for future, this is where all the Navy housing used to be located. So what we did was we did the study, hydrological study as to how much stormwater is going to be generated. So we built a large ponding basin, or ponding basins, but a large one has 2 injection wells in it already. So it's been operating for the last 10 years.
Okay.
So
is this permitted?
Yes.
Through Guam EPA? Okay, because that brought up a concern about PFAS contamination into the water under the aquifer. So it's a cause of concern.
Yeah, just want to let you know or clarify some things that, with PFAS, the water remediation that we do, we have 3 wells. So they pump it to our reservoir. The reservoir has a remediation system, GIAA, which also removes PFAS from the water. So that was to collect contaminants that was left over from the U.S. Navy.
Okay, thank you for that. In regards to the AFFF, aqueous film forming form, whatever the AFFF stands for, but I know that there was supposed to be a reformulation. FAA was supposed to create a new formula for that to reduce the amount of PFAS in it. What is the status of that?
Well, they have a new foam fighting thing, and it's called F3, and that is in the process right now. We're supposed to be getting testing done in Saipan at Pratsy to go through those testing, and then hopefully soon we'll be able to take that and convert it over to the new system. We're not there yet, but yes, we're definitely, there is a new process that we're going to be implementing.
What is the timeline for that?
We're waiting for FAA to give us that. As soon as that is done, then we'll make that conversion.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for all your responses. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Paris. And just, again, one final thing, and thank you for the line of questions in regards to the loan situation as well, because, you know, the $9 million that has been owed to the airport, and whether or not you go on, whether a loan or a payment plan based on what the FAA had mentioned, there would be, so if we go to the loan, there'll be an interest rate. We go to a payment plan, there'll be an interest rate. So the only way to save all that is the direct appropriation. But the question is, do we have the money for a direct appropriation? And that's, you know, that's a big question that, you know, working with of course, the OFB chair to see if that's going to be feasible at this point. I don't think it is. So, again, thanks for looking at alternatives and how to get this done, because it's something that's owed to you. It's not a debt that you've incurred. It's what's owed to you. So, with that being said, you know, I guess you can be assured that whenever the Committee on Aviation, Tourism, CQA, Federal Foreign Affairs, has an oversight hearing, you can bet that your caloric intake will be lowered for that day, right? Okay? That being said, Dunkulan Zusmasi again to everyone who joined us today, our colleagues, of course, the leadership and staff of both the Guam Visitors Bureau and the GIAA, and members of the public, of course, who are tuning in, who came in here and also tuned in to our channel here. What we heard today, of course, is clear. Guam's tourism industry is still in ICU, but with coordination, accountability, and leadership, there's still time to stabilize the situation. This committee will continue to monitor both the Guam Visitors Bureau and GIAA closely. We will expect data-driven results, of course, continued transparency and measurable outcomes that restore confidence in Guam's visitor economy. I look forward to the update in next month's oversight hearing. And before I end this, Chairman Bamba, you had two board members that were here as well this morning. You want to recognize them?
Yes, Senator Lujan. It's been a long day and very fruitful discussion. And I just wanted to say thank you to the senators for engaging with us and your support, as well as the management of both the GVB and GIAA. And I have Director Jess Garcia and Director Doyan Marato, who are very involved as well with airport matters, and so their presence here shows the commitment that they have. So thank you to them as well.
And sorry, just to inform Director Marato's confirmation vote actually will be up in the December session that we're going in a couple of weeks. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for that. I know she got the grilling the last time that she was here, right?
So she wanted to be here to make sure she's well versed. Thank you.
But again, the people of Guam want transparency, and all that we do, and so that's why we're going to have a continued. We'll probably won't have the oversight in December, but we'll probably have it in January, maybe mid-January as well. So just be prepared. And again, you guys are started off, of course, and as the chairman of OFB, right? Performance-based budget, and we're going to be going into that, and so you guys are taking the lead in that as well. And okay, so written testimony will be accepted within 7 days of today's hearing and may be addressed to my office at 259 Martyr Street, Hagåtña, Guam 96910, or emailed to my office at senator.lujan@guamlegislature.gov. Once again, Zeus Masu, everybody who participated in today's hearing. So today's hearing on the Guam Visitors Oversight hearing of the Guam Visitors Bureau and the Guam International Airport Authority is adjourned. It is now 3:03 p.m. Thank you very much. Zeus Masi. And hey, happy Veterans Day to all the veterans, okay?